What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff with Living in Arizona, and today we are going to talk about Phoenix. Things to know about Phoenix. If you're new to this channel, we talk about things all across Arizona, and yeah, so you might want to subscribe to this channel if you have an intention to move to or live in Arizona and you want to learn more about Arizona. So this one, like I said, is going to be all about Phoenix and the things to know. First and foremost, let's just break it down Barney style like we're on Sesame Street, and then we'll kind of get more advanced stuff. And that's just because we're going to talk about the basics. So I always like to say this: Phoenix is laid out on a grid, okay? I've mentioned this in previous videos, but you have on the West Valley is avenues, then you have Central Phoenix, right? That's where all the skyscrapers are on. They're on Central. On the east side of Central is the streets. And it can go all the way to 300 and something Avenue on the west, all the way beyond the White Tank Mountains to Tonopah, Buckeye, etc. And then beyond Fountain Hills the other direction, past Scottsdale and Fountain Hills, and all the way out to who knows how far streets. 200 and something street, 300 street. I mean, it goes pretty far. And that's a grid. Now, as far as the north to south, there is no real rhyme or reason to that as far as the alphanumeric, but it is streets, so everything is pretty much gridded. We have, while we're on the subject of streets, let's talk about freeways. Around Phoenix is the Loop 101. There's also the Loop 202 to be created and completed, and then the Loop 303. So Loop 101 basically will take you from Tempe all the way up to North Scottsdale, all the way out towards Peoria, and down all the way towards what is I-10 area in South Phoenix. And you can do the loop all around. It's one loop around the majority of Phoenix, but because Phoenix is sprawling and it's always growing out instead of up, like New York City, they grow up. Tokyo, they grow up. Honolulu, they grow up. In Phoenix, they grow out, meaning they don't necessarily have super high skyscrapers because land is not scarce here, so they can just keep sprawling, and they do. So the Phoenix metropolitan area is continuously sprawling, and if you want to know how much the Phoenix metropolitan area actually encompasses, you'd be surprised to find out that Metro Phoenix has 4.7 million, making it the 11th largest metropolitan area in the nation. Now, as far, and it was actually at 15th in 2014, so it's growing. Phoenix just keeps growing. Now, if you wanted to talk about just Phoenix alone, not including Mesa, Scottsdale, Chandler, I believe Phoenix is number 6 in the nation as far as the biggest cities. Just Phoenix, okay? That's just the city of Phoenix. Which, if you start including like San Francisco Bay Area, you would have to include San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco. But Phoenix on paper is larger than San Francisco, Oakland, or San Jose individually. But if you're including the Bay Area, metro area, it would be bigger. Okay. You also have Houston, Dallas. Those are all bigger than Phoenix. But that's just some interesting information to see how huge Phoenix is really getting. Another thing that I always like to talk about is we have 4 pro sports teams. That's really cool. We have the Arizona Cardinals, we have the Phoenix Suns, the Phoenix Coyotes, or I believe they're the Arizona Coyotes, and the Arizona Diamondbacks. So that's hockey, baseball, football, NFL, and NBA, for those of you who are interested in that. We do get some interesting music festivals. Probably the biggest one that I know of off the top is Country Thunder. If you're into holidays, Phoenix, it does cool down in Phoenix. So during the holiday season, I'm not going to guarantee that you'll see snow every year, but occasionally you'll see a light dusting of snow, especially up in the northern parts of Phoenix, because the North Phoenix area, Scottsdale, North Scottsdale, towards Tonto Hills and stuff, the higher up you get, the more you will see the snow. So some of these mountains you will see white capped, whereas down in the valley it's just really brisk and cool. Some of the mountains will have snow on them. You will see snow on these mountains, and then usually it dries up later in the afternoon. So the higher up you go in Phoenix, the higher elevation you go, the more chance you're going to see of having snow. So it can be possible to have a white Christmas or a white New Year's if you're into the snow. But we do get, in my opinion, 4 seasons. Fall here in Phoenix doesn't quite look like it does in Vermont, but you get fall kind of weather and cool downs. I would say it starts to really cool down around about Halloween time, and then it stays pretty neutral that after that first cool off from Halloween through November, and then you start to really see a significant cool down in early December that carries on, and sometimes January can be pretty cool, really cool, waking up to frost in the morning. So that's something to keep in mind also. Some other interesting things to know about Phoenix. We do get a lot of snowbirds. Snowbirds are people who come from places like Illinois, Wisconsin, Canada. Out here in where I live in, oh, you can hear the F-18s. Right now there's a military exercise going on in Yuma, so there's a lot of military aircraft, which I don't know if you could hear that. I'll talk about that later, actually. But a snowbird is someone who moves from a cold climate, and they try to escape the winter, so they come here during Arizona's winter because it's just not snowing in bitter cold, 10 below. So they come here, and those are called snowbirds. So when traffic gets worse in the winter, people blame the snowbirds. So if you notice that the traffic's pretty thin in the summer, and then it just gets thick in the winter, blame the snowbirds. There is a lot of beautiful mountains around Phoenix. There's Camelback Mountain if you like hiking. I still call it Squaw Peak. I don't know what the new name of Squaw Peak is. I just still call it Squaw Peak. But that's a cool place to hike. You've also got South Mountain and just various different hikes that you can enjoy around Phoenix. There's Pinnacle Peak. Just a lot to do. I would say that Phoenix has a lot of Mexican food, and that's a good thing, because if you like good Mexican food, you can definitely find a lot of good Mexican food. When I say good Mexican food, just stuff that just you crave. It's just that tasty, right? Burritos, tacos, tamales, Sonoran hot dogs, you name it, it's all there. When you actually get your iPhone and it's sitting outside, it can overheat. I mean, your iPhone just sitting in your car can overheat. So when you get an iPhone temperature cool down warning, kind of get used to that. But leaving your car in the Arizona heat in the summertime can cause your cell phone to overheat. That's how hot it gets. As far as the issues with getting out of the heat in those situations, people go up to the White Mountains. They go to Flagstaff, Sedona, even Grand Canyon. There is escapes in the high country. Payson, Snowflake, you can get away from the heat and you can get up there. It's 20 degrees cooler up there on average, so that's pretty cool. Public transportation, you're not going to be too blown away with public transportation in Phoenix. The buses I did find were pretty nice, but because Phoenix is so spread out and on a grid, it's not like San Francisco or even any of these other cities where things are pretty densely compacted. So the light rail really, it takes a long time to get around, and it moves pretty slow. So Phoenix is huge. I mean, to get from one side of the town to the other, it takes quite a long time, depending on if you're using the freeways or surface streets. If you're taking the surface streets to go from north to south on the surface streets, it can take 3 to 4 hours. If you're taking a freeway, it can take an hour and a half. But if you take a light rail, well, right now the light rail doesn't really take you there, but it'll take you an hour to get from one side of the street to the other. So that's kind of an issue. I would say most people, they tend to like swimming pools here. Also water parks. If you're into water parks, the water can be pretty warm in the summer here because it does warm up. I mean, it can turn into a hot tub, sort of. There's just other things that you could keep in mind. We were famous for a guy by the name of Sheriff Joe. He was pretty wild. I don't think he's sheriff anymore. We've got a new sheriff in town. The wildlife out here, there is rattlesnakes, there's chuckawallas, there's Gila monsters, coyotes, javelinas, scorpions, stuff like that. That can be kind of exciting, yet kind of scary at the same time, right? You could be walking out there on one of those trails at Camelback Mountain or Papago Peak or Squaw Peak or wherever you're at, South Mountain, and bam, there's a rattlesnake 7 feet or 6 feet long just sprawled out there 6 in the morning. That kind of stuff can happen. it is pretty modern. I always say that in all my videos. I would say that Phoenix, because it is so new, it's also very modern. Pretty much everything is new, modern amenities, and that's a good thing too. We do get these interesting storms in Phoenix. They have gone down in frequency and in size, but every once in a while, once every 3 to 4 years, you do get an extreme monsoon where it just dumps water, like sheets of water pouring out of the sky. We're talking like insanely amazing electrical storms with lots of rain. Now, in those storms, every once in a while, you'll get a haboob. It does sound like a Arabic word, right? It sounds kind of like something. Well, that's because in the Arabian desert, they get them also. They're called haboobs. They're moving storms of dust. So that's pretty interesting, right? But the smell of monsoon season is just that it's the smell of rain, and that's pretty cool. We're the only state that is on Mountain Standard Time all the time, so we don't change our clocks. So if you don't like changing clocks, you're gonna like the fact that we're on Mountain Standard Time all year long. And yeah, that's pretty much it. As far as activities to do inside of Phoenix, if you're just into like water sports, people go Salt River rafting. They also go to Saguaro Lake. It's a great place to go to Lake Pleasant, Canyon Lake, Roosevelt Lake, Bartlett Lake, Horseshoe Lake, so many different lakes. Water activities are pretty popular, assuming we don't go completely bone dry and have a drought, right? Yeah, so you can as far as growing plants in Phoenix, I'm personally trying to grow tropical plants, and I could talk about this more in my backyard as we can dive into that. But a lot of different variety of things. You'll see a palm tree over here, a pine tree over here, a tropical tree over here. So it's like there is kind of varieties. But because it does freeze here, tropical plants do struggle at times because it can freeze here for an extended period of time, especially in December and January. At night it'll freeze, not necessarily throughout the day. We do have a pretty good museum scene. We have the planetarium, the Walton Optimal Neurological Discovery Education and Research Center, which is known as Wonder. Then there's art museums all across the valley. We even have an aquarium that's pretty cool. We have Phoenix Zoo, which in my opinion has degenerated over time. It used to be an amazing place. I'm not so sure it's definitely still fun. Kids love it, but it's not the zoo that it used to be as far as like amazing. The Phoenix Zoo used to be a really amazing place, and it's in position to be an amazing place. They just need to do a better job of managing it. And I'm sure they'll figure that out, maybe fire the person who's jacking it up over there. So, yeah, I mean, we've got a big history of cowboys and blacksmiths, and because of that, we've got a great you can get really nice prime rib steaks. They know how to do that out here, cowboy style. You can go out, you got Spur Cross Ranch, you've got Greasewood Flats. I mean, out here in Santan Valley, Queen Creek's got some stuff. Just, they know how to do some steaks out here, Southwestern style, right? Nightlife in Phoenix is popping. Tempe Mill Avenue, downtown Scottsdale. You've even got some stuff going out in Glendale. Downtown Phoenix is picking up. So it's got a really good nightlife scene if you're into that kind of thing. Golf. I mean, Phoenix people in Phoenix love to golf. Golf's a big thing out here. But also another thing, it is kind of the personification of the American dream. Phoenix is the perfect starting ground for startups, entrepreneurs, and local companies. There's 5 Fortune 500 companies in Phoenix. Their corporate headquarters based here. That's PetSmart, Avnet, Republic Services, Inside Enterprise. And, it's just pretty good to know that if you're a business guy, that Phoenix is going to be a healthy city for that kind of stuff, right? And believe it or not, there also is a pretty strong coffee scene, but what city doesn't have a strong coffee scene in 2019 or 2018? But for those of you who are worried about that, you will see a pretty good coffee scene all over the Phoenix Valley. Anyways, if you have any other questions about Phoenix, Arizona in general, drop a comment below, and I'll do my best to try and either answer your comment or make a video. And we'll see you guys next time.